Yeah, so Deepti, talking about Deepti, she is a seasoned transformation leader with over 21 years of experience in digital transformation, agile coaching, and engineering effectiveness. With a deep expertise in agile methodologies, including SAFe, Scrum, Kanban, and Spotify, organizational change, and service development. Deepti has successfully led large scale transformation initiatives across industries, a passionate advocate of continuous improvement. Deepti actively contributes to the Agile community and has been a part of APGI since last 3 years.
And along with Deepti, we have Jaya Chakrabarti. Jaya loves helping organizations and its people achieve their goals and improve themselves. He has worked with multiple clients in varied domains, geography, and engagement model, including lean portfolio management, business agility, delivery transformation, engineering effectiveness, enterprise testing strategy, and capability uplift. Jaya grew up predominantly in Chennai. He has started his career as a QA in performance testing team, and later he has worked as full stack QA with end-to-end responsibilities for delivering the right product to customers. He has played lead QA and program QA roles, enabling organizations bring out quality first product. Now, for more than 2 years, he has been helping organizations and teams as a delivery transformation consultant. And today, Deepti and Jaya will be speaking about the topic Engineering Excellence in Action, the journey to 30% greater efficiency. So, over to you, speakers.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, after the lunch session, generally is difficult, right? Like, I see a lot of you already kind of dozing off. So let's start with some small icebreaker, Jay.
Yeah.
Okay. I will ask one question and then maybe you can go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. So, who all loves spicy food? I will request them to stand up.
Stand up.
Stand up. Because it's easy to sit and wave your hands. Oh, quite a few. Sometimes nice. Cool. Sit down.
Sit down.
Thank you.
Who all have done solo trips?
Wow.
Solo trips.
A lot of girls, huh? Of course, you are there.
Like you are the only single person who has been traveling without family or friends. Yeah.
Yeah. So, now I will go with questions like we used to have, right? Like
Yeah.
who is carrying that note and all, but no, let's not go there. Okay. Who has done engineering excellence or part of the engineering excellence team in their organization? Nice. Quite a few. Great. Okay. So, if we may request, we will need mics. What do you mean and what was it about, right? Like in brief, if just you can share your experience. When you said you were part of the engineering excellence group, right? So what was that? Because this term has a lot of meanings, and that's why we are asking this question so that we are all aligned.
Hey, can you check if the seems like the mic is not working?
Hello.
Yeah.
So engineering excellence that way is a relative term according to me. Because though I said yes to engineering excellence in one of my previous organization, I was part of delivery excellence. So, and to me both are synonymous because the way organizations use it. So when I was part of the delivery excellence group, it was, you would say, I can call it like QA, quality assurance. So end to end, the defining of the processes, measuring of it, and then taking the corrective action. So all of that. So I was part of that.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you. Who else we have? Yeah.
So we have something called developer experience or developer excellence. I think it is similar to that. How do you improve developers' efficiency, the way they do the development end-to-end life cycle? How can you improve or remove the bottlenecks into their by automation or through adoption of new tools or the check-ins or the deployment? I think that's all to me is the developer experience part of it. Right, and we also had flow metrics which we were capturing how much code commit, number of coding days, and all of those aspects, and then developer able to see those onto their desktop. Also, a lot of those activities happened. Now, whether they were successful or not, I can't say that, but yeah, I mean that all has been part of the journey.
Sure, thank you.
So for us, I think it has been scaling of engineering practices and processes so that there is level of synergy, so that you have multiple teams delivering to each other, there is a cadence, the type of tools that are being used, the process that is used for deployment, right? Some amount of synergy and common tooling and common kind of processes that helps systemic improvement rather than one or two places.
I think
That's nice.
great points, Deepti.
Yeah.
We are covering most of it, and let's put up a narrative around the same.
Sure.
Should we get started?
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's start. So most of us now are aligned, right? Like what does it mean? So what we heard is kind of similar. It was not a lot different, right? So let's proceed.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, I mean, we'll start with a journey, right? Like, I mean, most of you must be aware, right? Like, in few years back, right? Customers or organizations used to come and ask for help for, we want to do agile transformation. We want fast delivery, right? That was the problem statement. But now, Jaya, what do you think? Like, what is the customer coming to us now with?
No, they have coined all the new words like engineering excellence, delivery transformation, and a lot more things are coming in. And they just are not okay with calling it as just agile enablement and things like that. They need like a lot more, and that's when we see like what is the problem statement which the client brought us when they came in. Should we go to the next slide then? Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Have you heard this term before? The very first line, do more with less. Yeah. Somehow this has become like a funda, right? Have you come across this term anywhere? So in the past 2 or 3 years, like somewhere when the COVID and all those things started, suddenly there was a funda about we want the same set of people, we want the same capacity and all those things, but let's improve our process and we need some kind of efficiency improvement. And that is how like how we started doing agile enablement and all those things started taking shift from there. And you know, in this sort of engagement, what happened was, of course, we cannot take the client name per se. It was a huge automobile giant. They have a GCC setup in India, and they had like a lot of challenges in value stream, and they wanted to improve their efficiency. So this were their major asks. Thankfully, in every process, like even in a very personal, whatever we do and other things, if we put up a value stream around what we are doing, we could identify areas which we can improve and you know like put some metrics around it and you know like tell like which is better or which is great and which are the areas which we need to improve. Now that being said, right, so this is one of the key slides which we kind of use, and this comes from you know like some kind of report. At this point of time I don't remember which is the exact report, but typically what it says that in your entire development process and value stream, we will see about the metrics and other things per se at a later point of time. But cycle time is like a very good metric which overall tells the capabilities and health of your engineering organization or at a per team level also. So assuming a cycle time is there, what that report tells us that only 40 to 50% of the time is being utilized in actual productive work. So rest of the areas are probably things like overhead and wastage. Now the thing about overhead wastage is that you can't eliminate everything of it. There will be definitely some amount of overhead which is needed for say reporting, structure, governance and all those things will be definitely needed. But these are some of the key areas which I think nothing new which we did here. So these are some of the key areas which you can sort of improve, which will ensure that that gray bar will like probably improve. So some of the areas which you see is like say manual deployment, lot of regression time, like no testing whatsoever, and there are like defects, meeting time and all those things are there. So now this being said, right, and what Deepti also spoke some time back, when we initially started, we started off with telling we are just doing say agile enablement and things like that. The industry started to a place where the words like agile and all those things does not like fit well anymore. You can't just use the same old formula and then you know like work towards it. Now you need to build like a lot more hypothesis around it. And we start off with doing some hypothesis. You know, Deepti, can you share about that hypothesis?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean like what we are trying to say here is yesterday whoever attended Amber's session, right, like how to translate to whoever is the right stake, I mean to the stakeholders, right. So it's kind of connecting to that. So mainly for us now what we are trying to say here is what is the value, right, and how can we translate. So leveraging data driven transformation to enhance team practices and quantifying improvements through meaningful metrics. So why we are saying this is hypothesis, because this is something we have seen, right. So what you see here is something which we were able to see that without metrics governance, what was the stage, and with the governance using metrics, what was the stage. And why again I am calling off all of these things, because metrics helped us to convert into the language of excellence, and we'll show it later in the presentation today that how can we convert it, but for now that's exactly the hypothesis that we are talking about. Yeah, so I mean definitely, right, like we all start with some framework, some principles that fit for us, and not one formula fits all. So, but this was something that we used for this particular case study, because this is a case study we are talking about, that's why we wanted to bring what we had done, and that's why more around this, right. So yeah, to start with it was more around personalized feedback, right. So why it is important, I know you all know, but again calling it out. Personalized feedback is more about, we generally know, ask them about what is the problem statement, what does that mean is what is the target state that they want to go to. But for the personalized feedback it is important to understand where they stand, that is the current state, and that current state then helps us to pave that path towards the target states. And that is what we are talking about, the personalized feedback here, more around the personalized journey. Every organization, every team or every program team, I mean everyone will have their own journey, right. With that roadmap, right, it is more around than real time coaching. Now here when we say real time coaching, it is more about showing them on the job training, right. Then showing them on hands, like hands-on training, having pairing with them, showing them, okay, for example, Jaya was talking about the automation. So that was the case, right. The teams were not able to do automation. So showing them how can you do that, what are the different tools that can be used. So it's more about that. Once you have set up, now this is what we did was setting up the stage. Once you have the stage set up, then it's more about continuously monitoring that are you going in the right direction, where can we pivot, and taking the decision based on the data, right, what we saw in the previous slide, that was the hypothesis, like taking the decision based on the metrics. Once we have that journey, trying to see how can we scale and what are the next steps. So those were the pillars that we used as a framework for our case study that we are talking about.
Yeah. So now typically what is next? So we can't go ahead and just start off with whatever we feel like, right. So there is something which says something like, like meet the client in the middle, which means we need to be in a place where we need to understand what is the client exactly doing at this point of time, and not go ahead and just propose the same thing, right. We need to start off with where they are and then do some kind of improvements from over there. So how we start doing is that, which I think most of you would probably doing already, is that we start off with something which is like really broad, right. So we go ahead, we talk with some important stakeholders. So depending on what kind of stakeholders you are talking with, you will probably listen a earful, you will listen their problem statements, they'll talk about what are the areas that they want to improve, and maybe some of the or most of the stakeholders, they will tell you what exactly do they need. They will not worry a lot about, say for example, my engineering team is good, they are not following practices and all those things, but they will tell you much more at the statement level of they are working at a certain speed, they need to improve their efficiency, or they have like a certain time to market of like say 1 month or 2 months or whatever, they need to reduce it by like certain days. So those are some of the metrics and the call outs which they typically talk about. And that is where our hypothesis, which even Deepti had said, the metrics driven, that comes into the play here. So we start off with very broader level of people, we will understand the high level pain points on the organization, and then what we will do is that we will go to team levels. So what we typically do is that you typically start off with pilot, right? You all know. So you will have organization which will have like a huge portfolio. There will be like say 15, 20 teams or maybe like a lot more. You can't do for everything. So you start off with like very smaller team. So this VSM is an exercise which will map their entire process from start to beginning, in the sense like an SDLC, from start to analysis to development to deployment and all those things. You will start to map what is that high level process, what are the pain points that you are facing, and what are the time that is being taken in that individual lane. So this is, consider this stage almost like, like first visit of your doctor. So he will try to understand what are things that are happening on a very high level, right? And then probably he or she will recommend you, like go ahead and take some tests. So those are some of the tests which will happen here. So from here and here we have understood on a very high level what are the problem statements, and then we sit and deep dive with the team. This is when, we'll sit with the developer separately, sit with the QA separately and try to understand, what is happening on the things.
Just want to add here, right? You see the stars, what we wanted to, I mean, definitely in the AI world, right? We also implemented AI in this journey as well, and we try to map it with the stars, and you might not find it in all the slides, but we will call it out as and when needed. But yeah, definitely these two areas is where we highly use. Like for VSM we had, I can just give an example, Jaya, if you don't mind. So what we did was we did a large scale assessment. So because it was a large organization, as we said, right? So we can't just go and do assessment for each and every team. What we did is we kind of rolled off a large scale assessment, and we used we created a tool with the help of generative AI to analyze all that VSM inputs. So we structured it that way that we were able to analyze that results, and it helped us to create the,
Can I ask this question in middle?
Yeah, go ahead.
So when you said that the process that was mapped using visual stream mapping, so you analyzed it with the help of AI?
Yes.
And how did you did that?
Oh, for the technicalities maybe we can talk later, but yeah, I mean we had that model created, generated, and we then trained and we used it. So definitely it was a lot of inputs that we had to give earlier to then utilize it, leverage it. But
To tell her in very short, in the morning there was a discussion about, teacher asked them to write about Gandhi, right? And then she went ahead and searched. Very similar to that, we just asked this thing. We do all the groundwork, we input all the data to this thing, and then we'll ask, like, what do you feel about it? And then it will give like a very good picture. And of course, we just can't go ahead and use it like directly, because like we have to put our judgment on top of all those things, and that's when we analyze how good or bad it is and things like that. So this was like a very manual process like 2 or 3 years back. Right now with the help of AI, the manual process is still there, but the amount of time it takes has like drastically reduced.
We can move ahead.
So this is just like an example. This is that thing which I spoke about, where it will start from analysis to all those things. And the other part of it is like sort of like a maturity model and maturity index per se. Here what we will typically do is that we will have like a certain set of questionnaire. There will be like different questions for like say different personas, for QA, devs and all those things separately. We will ask them to rate them against themselves. So it will happen that they might overrate themselves, that's also true. But like when we like deep dive and then do the enablement per se, then we will try to understand like how good or bad it is, and we will present those results also anyway. So this is what you are telling about yourself, and this is what like we think, and then we will discuss it from there. Okay.
Yeah, so what you see until now was collecting all the data, right? It was still very early in the phase where we were just trying to build the roadmap, right? So what we have now is we have created a sprint over sprint roadmap of how we can help them to go to the target state, right? I mean, this is just a sample, you can have a look at it, but yeah, that's what we want to say. And here for us it was important for you to know that we have considered all the different aspects here. So it covers the process, people, technology, product, all those aspects. So that's how we created that roadmap, and sprint over sprint we worked on each of these initiatives and helped them improve by having the data driven governance. Yeah, we can move ahead.
Yeah, I'm clicking, it's not.
But yeah, before that, right? Like, so
sorry.
this is something, yeah, let it be.
Huh.
So this is something, okay. So he didn't want to give you the spoilers, and that's why he came back here. But okay, we had a question for you all. That's why. Okay, now in this AI world, right? Like, what all tools are you using at your different SDLC phases? Like, your teams must be using some AI tools, right? So what are those tools? If anyone wants to just share few names, what has helped you, right? Like, because we are working with the teams eventually, and the teams are using those tools, and we should know about what tools they are using, how are they leveraging those, and we are asking about, like, if anyone wants to give an example.
So we have created Jira Smart tool that automatically creates the stories. I give a one-liner description, and it creates the story. So that's one tool that we are using. We are also using Copilot, of course, and then the GitLab Copilot.
Yeah.
So for us, I think something similar. A user story writer tool is being developed. It's in POC phase. There are obviously GitHub Copilot, which is being rolled out, and the expectation is that the developers will use it. But yeah, it's all very nascent stage, POCs and all going on.
Correct.
So for us, like where I belongs to, like we have rigorously used the RAG-based tool for all the SLDC, from requirement to generating the story features to the QA engineering and all this stuff, and it's continuously progressing. So starting it's less quality, but right now we see as a efficiency, and the efficiency is one of the KPI that we are heading.
Great, thanks. Okay, maybe Jaya now. So the what you see here is these are some of those tools that we started using, right? Like, when I say we, as in what we were doing is our team, right? We and Jaya with few of our team members were enabling those organization teams on how do we implement the path with the use of these AI tools, right? So integrating AI and also integrating the implementation of where they want to achieve, right? So that's what we were trying to do here. But yeah, I mean, like, if you ask me, maybe I will not be able to explain each and everything here, because as I said, we were part of the team. We are not the experts here of these areas.
Yeah. So let me just touch upon one challenge which will probably happen in this area. So especially in the last engagement which we are in, which is this Auto Giant, what happened was the amount of unit tests which the team has started writing was like really less. So our team from ThoughtWorks, we proposed start using like Copilot. But what happens when people directly start using Copilot is this: they do not have the mindset of why we are writing unit test, or what is the need for it, how to write the right test. So when the usage of AI comes from an angle of not knowing anything, then the output will not be that great. So we ensure that, like, whenever a tool usage or any of those sorts happen, like, we imbibe the practices and all those things, and then we leverage the AI rather than, like, directly using it mindfully. So
yeah, with that, definitely connecting back to the real-time coaching, right? So this was something, the approach that we integrated, starting off with what is the backlog for the sprint, right? Like, you saw the sprint plan, which was the implementation plan initially. So we took it as a backlog. We used to have baselining of the metrics at the start of the sprint for any new initiatives. Otherwise, for the implemented initiative, we already have metrics. We used to kick off that initiative, then practice, right? Because as we said, not one solution fits all. So we need to adapt, we need to see what fits for this particular team, change, right, implement those changes, learn, get support, and again, all the different aspects of teaching comes into place, pairing comes into place, then building, definitely, yeah. And then what we do is, we, at the end of the sprint, we track, right, where are we going, are we heading in the right direction? Do we need to pivot? What is that we want to do in the next sprint for that particular initiative? So this was the framework which we used in the coaching, as well as this was something for the continuous improvement, right? Based on this, we continuously improved from where we started for that particular initiative to what the target state was.
Yeah. Just one point over here, I think we somehow removed it. So what we are typically doing here, if you see, is it's mostly around habit forming only. So if you think about the teams, the development teams, right, usually competency or any of those issues may not be the issues. So it's mostly around building habits and things like that. So that's why the coaching and all those things come in, where there is this theory, right, when you do something for like say 21 days or some 1 month or something like that, whatever you do becomes like an habit. And that's where we are coming in, where people, especially who are not doing any of this, we start off with habit formation of each and individual activities, and then we, like any backlog, these things will be in the backlog and we take it like one by one and start doing it.
Yeah, I mean whatever you see here was for that specific customer, and that's why you see
yeah.
these, like, because this is a case study, we are also talking about what all things.
Yeah, some of the
right?
slides are actual slides actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now coming to the like the sort of the crux of this thing. So metrics is something like really important, right? We touched upon a bit. So in this day and age, you can't just tell like you are doing agile development and the stakeholders will accept. So they will like clearly ask you, what is that will improve, or what is that you will give me to ensure that I can tell to my higher above telling it has worked. So and that's why the entire hypothesis came in. So first thing, like this is like say like an higher level metrics, like like this is like the 4 key metrics and DORA metrics, whatever you want to call it. There are 2 metrics which is like sort of like a stability, and 2 metrics around velocity. So there is a calculation at the end which comes with the idea of the lead time. So there is lead time and deployment frequency. Lead time is like almost like from the start to finish, from the start to finish of a product, how much time does it take. So you measure it using the commits and things like that. Deployment frequency, like how occasionally do you deploy, and the rest of the 2 things are mostly around like when a failure happens, what happens and things like that. Now these are something called as lagging metrics. Now the next thing which you see is the leading metrics sort of. So I have not put the exact metrics here, it's a combination of say both metrics and some of the habits. So if I have to give like a very parallel kind of example, we all have some point of time like worked on our health, where we like try to improve our health for whatever reasons, right? So when you consider health as an example, one of the lagging metric of health is your weight, or your sugar level, or your lipid level, or whatever. So the idea of lagging metric is something which so the middle one is the lagging metrics, right? The idea of lagging metric is something which will not change right away if you do something right now. So how you will typically measure is that you will ensure that your leading metrics are changing on a daily basis. So leading metrics are typically the habits. So in that idea of health, your leading metrics are things like, are you going to gym today? Are you following your diet plan today? Things like that. So you can immediately tell, am I doing it right or wrong today? So when you, for a couple of months or something, when you see your leading metrics being done on a regular basis, at a later point of time, you will eventually see the changes in those lagging metrics, like the health example. So very similar to that, this is the example over which this is the hypothesis in the example where we consider these as the lagging metrics, and for example, if you see, these are the areas which will probably affect your lead time. So for example, the test coverage, the sonar cube metrics, your UAT duration, Jira cycle time, and all those things will like probably improve your lead time or make it like much bad also. Very similar to that, change failure percentage, some of those metrics or some of those practices will affect your these things. So what we do is that we do a mechanism of tracking. Of course, we will not track like everything, but we will track some of the most important ones.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, anyone has anything? Okay. Yeah. So no, we can go ahead. Yeah, I mean this was the base, right? Like for governance. Now definitely we spoke about the data driven thing, right? So governance, what do we mean is we need to do continuous improvement, and for that we should have those metrics that we just saw, right? And what metrics will depend on what initiative you are picking, prioritizing. So that's why, I mean, the list was like a laundry list, but what metrics matter to you will depend on what is the area of improvement that is specifically needed for you. Okay, so in the governance then generally what we do is we start off with a control tower. I mean, we generally do that, right? Now in the AI world, we are trying to move towards the AI dashboard as well, but no, I mean, if anyone has successfully reached there yet, but it's a step process, right? But yeah, I mean, this is something what we generally do. We have a place, a common dashboard where all the metrics are there, and then have the governance around all the different, I mean, this is just an example, but yeah, have governance around all these metrics at every sprint or at a frequency, regular interval. That's the key around governance. And let's go to the next slide, and I want to talk more about the
Just
governance.
one point here. So,
Yeah.
this is just an example that yellow dot that you see. So, when we present the metrics, how we typically present is that we will have a green dot if we think it is like in an upward trend.
Yeah.
We will use a red if it is the opposite. The yellow is something like it's like balancing. So, if you see this particular example where scope change, it was like much worse, it became like slightly better, and then it became like slightly worse, and again it's like, you know, like going in a reverse trend. It's still not better, but the thing is that it has become like much better than what it was previously. So, the idea is that, you know, you have to just balance it out.
Yeah, so this was a framework for transformation as well, right? So, what is important is celebrating the success, because generally in this journey, what is important is keeping everyone motivated. And that's why wherever you are, embrace the failures, whatever we have achieved, celebrate those success, stick to aligning the right metrics, tracking the right metrics, and doing the governance around that. Always discuss about the risk, issues, dependencies, right, assumptions, and the roadmap. We saw the roadmap, right? That was something which we created at the start. But have the governance around that roadmap as well. Like metrics is important, but equally we need to have the governance around the roadmap. Where are we as part of the roadmap? Because we created that plan. It's not necessary we are able to follow that as is. So where are we with respect to the roadmap? And then reporting, having the transparency around all those things. That was the key aspect of the governance. 15. Yeah, I mean, before we dive in here, again, you know, coming back to a question I have for you all, we will now show you that why we are saying 30% efficiency, right? We came up with that number, we are claiming it, but we will also share the logic and formula behind it. But before that, we want to understand from you folks, how do you calculate? Like when you say, okay, we were able to achieve this efficiency. Kunal, you said you have a matrix around efficiency. Like, how do you know that you have achieved that efficiency? Because efficiency is a, you know.
It's very difficult, and based on the stakeholder it change. Okay, so in a hierarchy of organization, so the baseline, setting up a baseline, working with them is very important. And when we working with most of the, you can say the account, to alignment and defining that input parameter are necessary to do that. And then we turn into the number. So let's give the one of the very easy, and maybe sometimes it's very contradictory also. Story point approximately equal to number of hours. Okay. So hours is very catchy word. If anything related to the efficiency it comes, it will be sold very nicely. To achieve it, it's very difficult. So you need to find out that path working with the stakeholder, like how you want to manage.
Like he mentioned, efficiency calculations is a little bit tricky, and it can vary product to product. So one of my team is working on cars, and there is version upgrade which is pertaining to compliance and security if you are not updated. So for me, it might be, suppose for a version upgrade it is taking 15 days as a baseline or 20 days. So after we do this kind of exercise, what is the improvement that I am having after certain version upgrade? So it is that time reducing, or are we having any P1s or P2s when we are doing upgrades? If there are P1s, so are they due to the upgrades? So having a baseline for certain matrices and then evaluating us as a team on that, and then maybe we can say that there is some improvement or
Yeah.
a particular improvement in that efficiency.
Yeah. Okay. Let's take this last one and then.
Yeah.
proceed.
So I think we are also stuck with the output part of efficiency, cycle time, throughput. But I think all these are gameable. All these are like not really telling anything. What probably we are also trying to find that how do we measure the outcome, right? Even if I did 1.5 times deployment, did I get 1.5 times of business or satisfaction, business satisfaction, and so on. So we have not found that. We are still struggling with the output.
Absolutely. Like, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
even I
when
will
he
not
said
say that. Yeah.
gameable, I just remember in one of the previous projects, the say-do ratio was always 100%. I was like, how does it happen every time? Then what I saw was they just increased the time of their sprint. And like sprint is 2 weeks, they made it like whenever it ends. You will always achieve 100%.
So the problem is like with this DORA and all, right? It comes from top and you say we have to improve deployment frequency. So one of my stakeholders said, I am a legacy application. My goal is to reduce deployment frequency. I don't want to release to
Correct.
production.
Correct.
And now you're telling me just everyone has to do.
Absolutely.
That becomes a challenge.
Yeah.
So,
So,
Yeah, go ahead. Okay. Okay.
so on the governance part, who was involved or driving the governance? Because that also matters in terms of
Absolutely.
how pure is the data, right?
Correct.
So what was was there any challenge in terms of establishing the governance and who is driving it?
Yeah. So we had governance at different levels, right? So sprint level, when we say, it was with the complete team, entire team, right? Then we used to have a bi-weekly governance with the key stakeholders. Like when we say key stakeholders, the sponsors, right? So with them it was more around, now we are talking about the leading metrics like Jaya said. We can't show them all the lagging metrics, right? So it was at a different level. It was more at the whatever was piling up, right? Spiraling up. What are those rates? So it was at that level. And then one at the C executive level, which was the frequency was once a month, where it was more around, okay, are we reaching the efficiency?
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, yes. And that is exactly the.
They will talk more about value if you are talking at that level, right? I mean, maybe some more story points, some more deployments, it will not matter to them.
That's exactly why when we were, I mean, we had all at all the levels, when we were working at the team level, we were having that visibility. If it is, I mean, we were also there to look at all those levels, right? So at the team level, when they were showing that, Jaya was able to catch that, okay, they had gamed it. Because we were having the access to the data, we were working with them closely, and we had that access. Yeah, so with that, I mean, definitely, if you're sitting at that level, you won't be able to access this. I'm talking
No,
about.
but
Yeah.
what you asked is a very important thing. So what happened in the same engagement which you're talking about is, we used the word called governance, and then we went in, and the governance turned to be like a showcase where people are just demoing whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
And what happened was when the entire team and squad members and everybody was there. So they put it in a way where everything was like very good. It was all green and things like that. So what we did like in the very next day is we separated out showcase and separated the governance completely. So the showcase will deal with your demo, whatever and things like that. And then your governance will only show numbers, the hard hitting numbers. People will be angry at this point of time, people will not like what they see and things like that. And we removed all the people who are in squad, and we only had like managers and above. So that way the governance, like even though the meeting itself was like very tricky, but overall the engagement went really well when we take the thing. So see, what you see here is like extremely oversimplified, because like what we used is like very proprietary, and also it had like lot more factors around things like how confident are you in like these numbers and things like that. So the typically idea here is that, right, for example, this is an example from an automation suite point of view, and when I say it's oversimplified, but the example is like probably real also. So in one of the stream, what they are doing is that they were doing complete regression of 5 days before every release, and they did not have any kind of automation whatsoever. So building up a narrative around, let's start building your automation suite, let's hit 2 different layers. So one is the, say for your example, the UI layer and your API layer. And then when you start adding those layers, what will happen is that the layers which are the test cases in the layers which are automated will start moving from 5 minutes of each manual to under 1 minute for say a UI oriented test, and even like in milliseconds for API oriented test. And that's the calculation which will start giving from every sprint. And we extrapolate that sprint. So very similar to that, you will see like, we did some changes in the code review, like how they do. It was like a very manual labor of code review of like 30 minutes, like a very smaller number. They used to do like say even 45 minutes in 1 hour. So we did like most of it like using AI assisted and putting less time count of templates and like improving that point of thing. Overall, this idea of lead time which you are talking about, right? So now coming slightly to the definition of lead time, it is about how long the individual commit takes from the moment it is created until it goes to deployment, and average of all those commits. So when you started doing like an example which I gave you, when this started changing initially, you would be able to see the things like around lead time, deployment frequency, and all those things like improving. So this is like the high level calculation which we did.
So just will like to add here. So this is something which it's an example, right? Like Jaya said, but we did this hypothesis building in the initial stage as well. And yeah, I mean we missed that part, and that's why I want to cover it. So we created the roadmap, that implementation plan that you just saw, right? Getting that alignment. So with that we can move to the challenges section also. Maybe I'm covering one point from there.
Just on this point, right? So I don't remember who, but based on like some of the questions here, there are like some theory on like, we are just trying it out, we didn't get our narrative right and things like that. My only advice here is that just get started. That's it. You will get wrong and then you will improve at the later point of time.
Yeah, so what I was saying is, journey continues, but before that I want to just call out, when we created that implementation plan, right, it was important to have that alignment around what is that initiative we want to prioritize. That prioritization is a big challenge that we have faced, and creating that hypothesis you just saw that Jaya was showing, right, really helped us to get that alignment across the organization, because everyone had the same goal to achieve, and because the goal was same, everyone then agreed that yes, we want to achieve automation, and for automation it's not just testing, right, it is all the different things you will need to change. So having that alignment is important, and that hypothesis really helped us. Okay, what we wanted to conclude with is, because we the time cards are are on my face, so just want to continue that. With that we want to also sustain, and we just saw here, what we saw here is setting up the ecosystem, right? We did set up the ecosystem. We introduced the champions, enable the trainers, or enable the people in the organization who can take this forward. That's just not enough, right? Having some community where you can build and share knowledge and learn from each other, because a mistake I have committed today might help to improve later, right? So that's how these were the principles that we use for sustaining and scaling the transformation. Yeah, and with that we also want to call out some challenges. So, yeah, maybe these were something we really faced during the gig. Yeah.
So I think we sort of touched upon on almost all things. So typically what happens is, theoretically people will tell that they are following like some metrics, but it will be like, mostly in my experience, mostly it will be Jira metrics and all those things. It might not be lot many engineering metrics per se. So figuring out the right metrics is really important, because as Deepti was telling, you need to understand which metric that you want to move in order to tell what is the exact practice which you want to imbibe in them. So like identifying the right metrics is really important. So that will be like really challenging, and the fostering of transparency. So the very first showcases and governances will be like really difficult, because it's very similar to like say our sugar level or whatever, right? So you will consider that things are all going fine, but the moment you take a test you will realize that how bad it is. So very similar to that, the very first time they start seeing some of the metrics, it will look like really bad. And then we have to like start the argument from that, telling, see, we have shown you it is bad, that's a good start. and then we'll start from there. So, like so very important all these things is like to be very transparent about all these things. This is something which people cannot escape from that, because when we suggest something, it will be like actually extra work, but we will tell that this is like an investment that you are doing for your future. There's like no escape from it. You are following new practices. There's like no way escape from it. Yeah, very similar to that. You need like some kind of capacity for change. So what we typically does that you continue with your BAU and all those things, but give us like 10% of a capacity or 5% whatever. So we will have like some kind of argument in that, and then to all this to happen, you need to have stakeholder alignment at every level to ensure that things are working.
Right. So this stakeholder mapping, as I was giving the example of implementation roadmap, right? Having that alignment with all. I will give an example of that. Like for one of our clients, we started the journey, we created the implementation plan, we had that alignment, and then they said, no, we have a PI target to meet, we can't move with you in this direction. And that's exactly where we were like stuck for 1 month. We were not able to do anything because we had a challenge of stakeholder alignment. And that's why it's very important to have that alignment. Oh, if you have the PI, then let's plan accordingly, right? So understanding the stakeholder and making the decisions accordingly. Adopting to new practices, definitely we know that there is always going to be a resistance. So identifying trust, who are our partners, right? Who can we trust on and who will help us in that journey. And finally, the last thing I was talking about, right? Like even if it is one initiative, all the other areas like product, processes, I mean there are impact, right, of each of those different layers. So even if we are talking about prioritizing one initiative, but have that cross-functional awareness, have that alignment and help each other in that journey. So that was something, we faced a lot of challenges in there, and that's why we are just calling it out. Yeah. With that, I think, yeah, I mean, we are open for any questions, if any. Yeah, sure. We can.
So you talked about you talked about 4 different areas like product, process, UX design, and way of working, right? And you talked about initiatives as well. So can you give few examples? What do you mean by initiative? What are those initiatives that you worked on?
Yeah, maybe we can go to the slide.
I mean, no slide, just
okay.
A sample, because initiative in my mind is something different. So
okay. Now we are talking about the team level. We are talking about the sprint, right? The example that we shared was at the sprint level. So the plan that we created was for the team. Now here the initiative was, we understood that the example that Jaya gave, the automation, they had a really lot of challenges around automation. So then the initiative was help them improve their automation test suite. That was an initiative. Now this also will take a lot of sprints to
this is not that feature wala initiative, this is that initiative.
This is not an epic wala, I mean initiative is not that one.
There is a different initiative.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah.
So when you were explaining about the VSM, you mentioned that the details you got from the VSM you fed into some module, but then from the ChatGPT perspective, I understand that because it is already fed, lot of modules available. So you mentioned that you developed that module. So in that case, how did you actually train that module? Because just by one finding, I'm not sure whether how you will get that particular pattern. So just understand that what kind of an approach you follow from the training module perspective, and then that module you actually fed that data to get some kind of a pattern. So if you can put some lights on that.
Right. So yeah, I mean definitely we didn't take that one instance as this thing, right? So we had data around all the different all over the years data that we had collected in the organization. We used that data to feed in, and we also had analysis. I mean, we had that activity already done manually. So we had to feed in that data to the model and then just train that model accordingly.
One question about matrix. I think as you rightly said, right, Jaya, that before you see it, you don't know it.
Yeah.
And I think the first thing that happens is the data cleansing. Once people understand the data hygiene itself, probably improve the matrix by 30% without doing anything. So where did you take the baseline? Did you take the baseline at the very beginning with the chaos, or after the data cleansing when you are relatively confident that the data
very
is
beginning,
good?
Very beginning.
At the beginning?
Yeah.
Okay. Will that kind of somehow kind of fudge that portion of it is more data hygiene and portion of it is real improvement? How do we differentiate?
No, in addition to what you said, what we also do is that we will also prescribe how do you exactly take that metric. So for example, we might not take metrics which can be like easily, like tampered with. So test coverage and all those things, you cannot tamper with those kind of metrics. Maybe people can say like ignore code and all those things are still there, but you will prescribe, this is the way to do this kind of metric. So that way we'll ensure that, like things are working fine. The other important thing is that when we do these sort of engagement, it's not like just like one or two agile coaches are kind of people getting in. So it's like proper, there'll be like one dev coach, there'll be one QA coach and things like that. So we'll sit with the people and then we'll pair with them in order to take the data and we'll ensure that, the data is very right.
Hey, wonderful audience. I can see it, I can feel it, even it is going on in my head. Lots of questions that I have to ask Jaya and Deepti later. But then they were very intelligent to keep us engaged, focused, and to also asking us to put on our thinking caps, see how we can together improve the engineering excellence of our respective teams. Yes, the journey is not going to be smooth, the way Jaya said, and the way you said, that show the metrics, however not good they are, because when we see the metrics, the journey is going to start from there. So thank you so much, Deepti. Thank you so much, Jaya, for this thought-provoking session. When I say that, I'm, humbling asking Rajeshri to felicitate both Jaya and Deepti. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.